Felicitations.
Hip hip hurrah. Tally ho.
We're 3 episodes in now to the Star Wars saga. What do you think, baby? Revenge of the Sith.
Cool movie.
We had a fun time rewatching it, didn't we?
Yes, I do think this one was the best of the prequel movies.
I remember when I first saw it. Now, this one is the only Star Wars movie that I saw at midnight. I saw it at the 100 Oaks Theater that's in Nashville. It's the largest complex of cinemas east of the Mississippi. It's 27 theaters. And they had all 27 theaters open up starting at midnight in 5-minute successions. So they had theater number 1, midnight. Theater number 2, 12:05. Theater number 3, 12:10. And what they did was there were so many people there, the line was going all the way around the building. Now, I mean, you've been there before to Hollywood.
Yes,
it
sounds like
27.
so. They were really prepared, though.
Holy cow! It was cray. They had there were so many lightsabers outside. People playing with lightsabers and dueling lightsabers. Because you got to figure by this time, Star Wars was super mainstream with regards to now multiple generations getting into Star Wars, and there was a lot to buy in the stores that was very easily accessible. And I remember the light-up lightsabers were everywhere, and they had attendants at the front door with these giant garbage cans because you couldn't bring lightsabers into the theater. So they were confiscating lightsabers, and there were garbage cans just filled up with lighted-up lightsabers.
Okay.
and I was thinking to myself, I would never give up a lightsaber. I'd go to the car, put it back in, and I wouldn't just leave it.
Yeah, you would. Yeah.
But it was truly an event to see something late at night like that. They don't allow midnight movies like that anymore. Why? I'm not exactly sure.
And this was on a Thursday night, wasn't it?
Yes.
Thursday at midnight.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Star Wars. You can battle for the galaxy with new Episode 3 lightsabers. You can choose Obi-Wan's lightsaber with Force vibration. Train with Jedi Master Yoda.
What will you have?
And choose your destiny like Anakin Skywalker.
He chose the dark side. What if I do too?
With the Darth Vader voice changer, the transformation is complete.
Don't know the power of the dark side.
New Star Wars lightsabers and voice changer. Each sold separately. Cable batteries not included. Ask an adult before going online.
Oh, you can. Go to Hasbro.com.
We had to see a lot of the returning cast. Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi, Natalie Portman as Padme, Hayden Christensen, Anakin Skywalker, Ian McDiarmid as Supreme Chancellor Palpatine, Samuel L. Jackson as Mace Windu, Jimmy Smits as Senator Bail Organa, Frank Oz returned again as the voice of Yoda. I know previously I said he was a puppeteer, but no, this was the last movie and this movie, they were just strictly the voice. It was all CGI. Anthony Daniels, another constant throughout the entire saga as C-3PO. Christopher Lee as Count Dooku. What did you think about him?
He was great in this.
Incredible. So, I mean, all-star cast as regards to the world of Star Wars, directed by George Lucas, written by George Lucas. So let's talk about what were our initial viewpoints of it. When we originally saw the movie back in 2005. This was the first PG-13 movie in the Star Wars saga. How did you feel when you first saw the movie?
It was a great spectacle. I remember thinking that it had what I was looking for. It had the great lightsaber duels. Mm-hmm. It had Anakin coming into his own or becoming a villain that we knew he was going to become. It had the dark scene at the end, which was expected, but it was more gruesome than expected. I really wasn't expecting how it was so graphic. That must have been why it had the PG rating.
With multiple levers, we saw a beheading.
Yes.
Right? We saw a beheading in the Star Wars movie, and we saw somebody get their legs cut off, burnt flesh. So that had to, the combination of it, because we saw a beheading or an implied beheading with Jango Fett, but that was PG.
Yes.
But this one, I guess it was the multiple layers. And I think it made sense. The Star Wars audience was growing up. It was probably the average age at that time was people in their 30s and 40s.
Yes, except for, the new fans, of course.
Yeah,
you still had the new fans, but yeah, the old ones were the old established fans were excited to see this, and it had to end on a dark note in order to go into the next, the Star Wars: A New Hope movie. Because
of the subject matter. We're talking about revenge. We're talking about the Sith, so it made sense. So what were some of the highlights of the movie for you?
It would still have to be the ending scene when Padme had the two babies. I mean, of course you expected it, but it's just that she, the robot, the med bot, right, brought her each baby one at a time. And, and he said, this is a boy. And she goes, Leia. His name will be, Luke. But, it was like she already knew what she would name them. And, and also I read that those two babies were actually played by the same baby. They didn't really get twins for that.
Interesting.
But just seeing Luke and Leia being born. I don't know why that was the most exciting. I know it was just a laid back moment, but somehow it was just because you know what's coming next. You know what they're going to grow up to be.
Absolutely, I loved it. It's like Titanic. You know how Titanic is going to end, but you want to see it end. You want to see how that happens. We want to see how Luke gets to Tatooine. We want to see how Leia gets to Alderaan. We want to see how Obi-Wan gets to Tatooine. We want to see how Anakin becomes Darth Vader. This is the type of movie that we knew the ending, but we didn't know the details.
Yes. And when I was just doing the rewatch, what I was thinking was, this was a good prequel, and why can't Star Trek do prequels that well,
It felt like a Star Wars movie.
Yes.
Everything linked together. The technology wasn't super fast forward. It's the struggle with Discovery. Star Trek Discovery is the technology is too fast forward for a prequel. Enterprise was too fast forward for a prequel. But the producers here understood the Star Wars universe. Speaking about the feel of the Star Wars universe, do you remember the ship that Anakin was flying? Because we see that had the links to a TIE fighter there.
It was similar, yes.
So they were able to make that progression of, hey, this is not a TIE fighter, but you're going to see some of the things that remind you of it. It looked like something that was roughly 20 years previous to A New Hope. Excellent visual effects with regards to the design of the ships.
They could make it tie into what was coming next and still make it look like it came before it.
Yes. In fact, this movie originally was supposed to be 4 hours long. They trimmed it immensely because it was just over 2 hours. 2 hours, 20 minutes, I believe, something like that.
Can you imagine seeing it for 4 hours?
And this was the era, though, of the Lord of the Rings movies.
The longer movies, yes.
So it could have been done, but I'm glad that they did cut it back. They were also having a plan of having a 10-year-old Han Solo in the Battle of Kashyyyk. Wow, can you imagine how that would have changed things? Because now we have the Solo movie.
Yeah, so I'm glad they didn't have that because it was better to save him for the Solo movie.
And let's talk about that. Chewbacca's homeworld. That was, for me, at the movie theaters, one of those exciting moments to see more Wookiees.
It was good, but I think, that scene was kind of short, though.
Mm-hmm. They could have developed it
shown
further.
Them more, yeah.
I would have liked to know more of the Wookiees, too.
But the Wookiees were actually going to be in Return of the Jedi, right? But then they decided to make it the Ewoks instead.
Mm-hmm. Yes, for budget reasons. So we were able to fill in a void that we wanted for years in seeing what the Wookiee homeworld is like. Well, we kind of did in the Star Wars Holiday Special, if you want to count that.
But we won't count that.
Now, what was interesting is, for years, the Star Wars novels have talked about Darth Vader being burned. It's really nothing new in Star Wars lore if we were to look at the original Star Wars novels. But in order to film the volcanic scenes, they actually went to a real volcano in Italy that was erupting at the time of production. So they were able to capture some footage in there. How'd you feel about that entire scene with the volcanic eruption and their fighting?
That was good. That was a brilliant scene, I thought. Now, I didn't know that they actually had a real volcano there when they were filming. It sounds really dangerous, but it was a good scene, and showing the way they were on the lava, standing up on the platforms and flowing through it, and then still having the sword fights and having the leaps in the air.
Yeah, that has to go into their training Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen, they trained for months in fencing and in fitness. So you could tell that their choreographed moves had some style to it.
It was very well done, yes.
Thinking about the Wookiee scene. I mean, we're talking about heat, the heat of the volcano, and this is something that some costumers do something similar. But the Wookiees actually, there was a system that they pumped ice cold water to help cool down actors wearing the suits. And we know some cosplayers that wear ice bags and ice packs underneath their costumes.
Yeah, it's something inside.
To do something similar. So there was so much uncomfortability for the actors on many levels in this film, but they pulled it off to make it visually stunning for us.
Yeah, I can imagine, like the Wookiee costumes, because their bodies were completely covered, so they must have been hot. Mm-hmm. And so they had pumps inside the costumes, right?
Yes.
So, yeah.
That cheeseburger you do not want.
I do not want that cheeseburger.
Those fries give Yoda.
Here, have my fries.
Your drink desire you not.
The Diet Pepsi, I do want.
Want you not.
Do
not want.
This summer, grab a Diet Pepsi and see Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith.
So I wanted to say Anakin in this movie had... So he became friends with Senator Palpatine. Mm-hmm. And the Jedi Council was suspicious of Palpatine, and they wanted Anakin to spy on him. Mm-hmm. And Anakin was kind of torn between the good and the bad, between like the Council. He wanted to be a Jedi, but he was kind of
I like that internal conflict.
Yeah, yes,
the struggle.
Yes. And I thought it kind of reminded me of Pyro in the X-Men movies, the boy Pyro that was He was part of the X-Men, part of Xavier's group. Mm-hmm. But then when he met Ian McKellen, Magneto was actually nice to him, and that was like the nicest person that he had met, because mm-hmm. the other group of the X-Men were kind of like well, they just felt like his attitude wasn't as good, and so but the one that we think is evil was actually nice to him, and so he eventually went over to that side.
Huh. Yeah, that's a interesting parallel there. But just think about it, real world. How many times do we make decisions and you're looking down one path, you're looking down another path, trying to weigh things out? I think it was interesting that the motivation for Anakin turning to the dark side was really not one of selfishness. He wanted to save Padme.
He did. And the thing is about Palpatine, even though he seemed like he was nicer and more understanding, but he was really just using him. Mm-hmm. And that's something that he never even saw.
So we look at the succession of Darths. We have Darth Maul, Darth Tyrannus, and the third one is Darth Vader. And Darth Vader became the most famous Darth, because now for episode 4, 5, 6,
yes.
1, no Darth is more popular than Darth Vader.
He became it. The
face of Star Wars.
Of evil, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And he was given the name Vader by the Senator.
Yes.
By Palpatine.
That's right. And how did you feel about that scene where Darth Vader was rising up from the bed? It didn't feel like Frankenstein.
Oh, it did, yeah, because he was so stiff, yeah, mm-hmm. And they had the mechanical parts and...
Well, they said that they made the costume top-heavy because they wanted Hayden Christensen to feel uncomfortable, and he would move uncomfortably, which he kind of did. He kind of lumbered like Frankenstein would, like he's trying to get used to his new body, because you got to figure his legs were new, his arms were new, breathing was difficult. So this was his first moments in this life support suit.
Yeah, like in this new life, basically.
Mm-hmm. A lot of ties with A New Hope and this movie. The last words of C-3PO in this movie were, "Oh no." And then the first words in A New Hope were, "Did you hear that? They've shut down the main reactor." So they're expressive words. And then we look at the last scenes in Revenge of the Sith, how we see Obi-Wan with the twin sons, And one of the opening scenes, this was the way it was. If you look at the cinematography of how they line up, when Luke Skywalker is shown in A New Hope, he's looking out the two sunsets. So we were able to see that link. They were purposely doing these subliminal things, so we're seeing a transition between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. And there's little things like this that really made it work for me. There's so many scenes in here. Some of them were kind of campy. They were made for a younger audience. They were made for an audience that enjoys more overwhelming action and overwhelming visual stimulation. Things like this really hit home to me, that they wanted this to link together with A New Hope.
And they did a good job with that too. I did watch this one time on TV where they were showing the movies in order, where they showed this one and then A New Hope, and you could see the way it flowed, the way like the ending of Revenge of the Sith just goes right into A New Hope. It flowed very well, so they knew they knew exactly how to end this on the right note.
What did you think about the transformation of Chancellor Palpatine into the Emperor?
Yeah, that was something else I didn't expect, because, they changed his face so that it looked like, when we saw his face in the later movies. Mm-hmm. And I kind of thought, well, they didn't have to show that because he would have gotten older anyway and his face would have changed just from age, is what I thought. But no, they had to make him actually artificially age and get all the wrinkles and radiation on his face.
It was just because of the backlash of the electricity from his hands, right?
Yes.
That Sith power that he uses, and Mace Windu's lightsaber. So that was something unexpected at the time, because I thought the same thing, that he's just super old.
Right, exactly.
Again, we saw Yoda going nuts with his lightsaber.
And yeah, well, he was still good at it. The CGI Yoda is pretty good. It's still not as believable because I'm used to seeing him as a puppet, and to see him floating in the air. Well, floating is one thing, but actually being a warrior and using a lightsaber as he's floating, it's still hard to picture a midget as a warrior.
Yeah. But that was another scene, and the whole movie theater just erupted. Well,
of course, yeah, because he is one of our heroes, yes. But he's more, but we came to think of him in Empire Strikes Back as more of a wise mentor and not as much of the physical kind. Mm-hmm. So he became the physical kind in these movies where they could have CGI.
I love the fact that once again we got to hear, I have a bad feeling about this.
Yeah, that was cool too. And they knew which dialogue to throw at us too. Mm-hmm.
What'd you think about General Grievous?
Oh yeah, he was neat. No, I like that scene where cause he pulled out the four limbs, the four lightsabers. And the thing is, what did Obi-Wan do? He smiled. I mean, instead of being scared, he just smiled and went, yeah, bring it on.
Mm-hmm. So he collected lightsabers from previous Jedi that he killed. A lot of transformations with General Grievous. So we see him upright, but then within time, he's like a transformer and goes into a crawling creature, almost bug-like, insect-like.
I guess because he is supposed to be a robot, isn't he? And so I guess he can transform.
So it showed that he had some kind of organic material in his chest.
Okay.
So what does that make him? Like an organic robot? I don't know.
Maybe like Darth Vader. I mean, who has robotic parts.
Yeah, because you remember they showed close-up of his eye sockets, and he did have some fleshy material in there.
It looked like it.
Star Wars universe, I always say, has the most creative creatures and robots. There's so many levels to them.
Well, like the droids and
they do
things like that. Yes.
I mean the Mos Eisley Cantina, Jabba's Palace. I mean, those who work on those are amazing. And so to see General Grievous move all his arms like that, and we don't know if he's started out as an organic creature that had robotics. Was he created as a robot and then organic elements were added to him? We don't know. But he was an exciting antagonist in the movie.
I kind of thought of him as insect-like too, with all the limbs and the long skinny limbs like an insect.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting when Obi-Wan first finds General Grievous, his first words are, "Hello there." And if you remember, when Obi-Wan first saw R2-D2 in the first Star Wars movie, A New Hope, he said, "Hello there." And I liked how they did that. They built the character of Obi-Wan over the years to show patterns in his actions, in his speaking, so that it does line up with the Alec Guinness version that we grow up with.
Yes. And even the way he, at the end of this movie, didn't he say like that he would stay on Tatooine? Mm-hmm. And so, sort of, I mean, maybe to watch over Luke, but I think he didn't really do much. He was mostly a hermit, mostly staying on his own, but maybe he just was aware of Luke growing up there anyway.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And a lot of fans feel this is the strongest of the movies. I feel that way. Out of all three of the prequel movies, this is my favorite.
Yes.
And Natalie Portman, she said this was her favorite of the three Star Wars movies that she was in.
Well, that's interesting because she had more to do in the second one. But, just as a movie, I think this one was the best one.
And we didn't speak much about her, but again, her outfits are gorgeous.
They are.
They always do a wonderful job of making very unique outfits and hairstyles for her.
She had like the weird outlandish things, and then and I liked her curls when she had the really curly hair in this one. That was nice.
It was released. We usually start out by saying when it was released, but we didn't. So let's talk about that. Released May 19th, 2005. Filming locations were in Sicily, Italy, in Switzerland, in Thailand, in Australia, in Tunisia, and various segments of the UK and China. So when we think about what made me think of this is Natalie Portman and all the different changes. Throughout the movies, we saw so many exotic locations as well that fit in. They chose locations that look like they fit into the Star Wars universe.
Yes, and as we've mentioned before, it still sounds like Raiders of the Lost Ark because they had so many exotic locations too. Mm-hmm. And this movie had all the changes of scenery so much going from one place to the other and each planet looking completely different.
Yes, and in fact, when we think about different areas and different scenes and different planets, when we think of Yoda, we usually think of Dagobah. In fact, when they showed the end scenes of the Bales taking Leia and Aunt Beru and Uncle Owen taking Luke, they actually did film a short clip of Yoda arriving on his ship on Dagobah, but it was not included in the movie.
Oh, okay.
Now, how cool would that have been to return back to Dagobah?
Yeah, that would have been neat. And Yoda also, but he did say at the end of the movie that he was going to go into hiding or something.
I can't get this open.
Allow me to help you, young one.
Thanks, mister.
May the fries be with you.
Star Wars Episode 3 toys are now at Burger King. There are 31 different toys you can collect. You can wind up General Grievous, race around with the Millennium Falcon, or make Yoda do a backflip. There's one in every kid's meal, only at Burger King.
Now, one thing, did you notice that when they put on, when Darth Vader came to be, when that platform rose up and we got to see Darth Vader, it actually looked more like the Return of the Jedi chess piece, because the Return of the Jedi chess piece or shoulder piece has silver accents on it.
I didn't notice. So it had the silver.
It had the silver on it, whereas in New Hope, it's black, just solid black. The helmet is a little bit different in A New Hope as well. It's a little bit bulkier on the dome of his head. So I was thinking, I remember distinctly in the movie theater seeing the shoulder piece, not even thinking about the other accents that they changed. They tweaked just a little bit after The New Hope. So I'm thinking, in universe, what does this tell us? In universe, we saw that in Empire Strikes Back, Darth Vader has his helmet removing on and off. So maybe Darth Vader has multiple versions of his armor that he rotates around?
He could, and he could change pieces, just because well, let's say he needs one, like a chest piece that might be rechargeable, so he's charging one while he's wearing the other.
yeah, that's a way to look at it. One thing that we have to realize about this is, even though this came out in 2005, this was, think about the stretch of when we didn't have Star Wars movies in the movie theater for quite a bit. This was the last one to be distributed by 20th Century Fox. After that, it went to Disney Studios.
Okay, that's interesting.
Disney acquired Star Wars in 2012. So there was a big gap.
Yes.
And we were expecting this to be the last of the movies because George Lucas said, I'm getting too old. I don't want to keep making these movies because I want to make a big gap between them. And there's no way I'm going to be doing these in my 80s.
Right. So he sold it to Marvel, or what am I trying to say? Disney, right.
Mm-hmm. $4 billion.
Only $4
billion.
$4 billion.
Yes.
Yes.
So, obviously this was the highest grossing film of 2005. That was no shocker.
Well, of course, yeah.
Oftentimes, especially during this time period, Star Wars movies were super popular. And then when we look back at it, we consider from what we have watched, because we watched the Star Wars movies in order of release, obviously, but what are the constants within these movies? Let's talk about them. Number one, Anthony Daniels as C-3PO, Kenny Baker as R2-D2, right?
Yes.
Frank Oz as Yoda. Now, he was not in Star Wars.
But
Frank Oz was in Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, and then the prequels. Now, think about this, too. James Earl Jones, the voice of Darth Vader. Peter Mayhew, Chewbacca. Ian Dermott, which is Emperor. So they were in 4 of the movies.
Well, it makes sense, though, to get the same actors to play the same characters.
Which is wonderful to do that. Because in order to... we say James Earl Jones was in 4 of the movies. There was no Darth Vader, obviously, in Episode 1, Episode 2, and then to bring back
and then just getting
James
his voice.
Earl Jones' voice as Darth Vader,
well,
no one could do it like him.
Right, who else could do it? They couldn't get anyone else, because we know what he sounds like.
And it's funny because some of the toys, the modern toys, they didn't want to pay James Earl Jones to do the Darth Vader voice, and the toys do sound like it, but if you listen to it closely, you go, it's not James Earl Jones. Like this. And that's one of the things that I love about Star Wars movies is that they have respect for the actors and the characters that they portrayed. Because in this digital age, could they have found someone else to sound like James Earl Jones and to do something with his voice? Of course they could have. Could they have another little person go inside R2-D2? Could they have another very thin man go into C-3PO's outfit? Could they have found someone very tall to go into Chewbacca's outfit? The answer to all these is...
Yes, and they did have another Chewbacca in the later movies.
Strictly because of the fact that Peter Mayhew can't move.
Right.
He has physical problems. But that's another endearing thing about the Lucasfilm team is that as long as you don't mess things up, like David Prowse did, we want to work with you. We want to continue this legacy, not just on screen, but behind the scenes.
That's excellent. Yes.
So it was fun rewatching this. What was your feelings? Let's recap.
Again, we both agreed that it was the best of the prequel movies.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to continue once a month reviewing a Star Wars movie. We invite you to do that with us. For next month, we are going to continue on with the countdown to episode 9. Next episode will be Solo, a Star Wars movie.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and join our Facebook group. Live long, and may the Force be with you. Nanu Nanu.